So with credit, it's an agreement with you. You're going to receive something of value today, okay? And agree to repay the lender at some date in the future. But you got to do that with some interest. Because we know a lot of stuff is free, but it's only free for a moment, right? So that's pretty much what credit is. Okay? So any questions about that so far? Okay, so we're gonna go to the next one. So how is your credit? Anybody? We're consumed with this credit score, right? This seems to be this big thing. Like they're judging us based on our credit score. Like just because a person has a 400 credit score does not mean that they're a bad person. But right. But if you go into a car dealership or if you go into a mortgage broker and you're trying to purchase something, unfortunately, you got to have more than a great personality walking in the doors, right? Okay? I didn't say it was fair. I just say that's what the rules are right now. So when we're in a game, do we choose to play the rules of the game, or are we going to tap out of the game? We're going to play the rules, right? And we want to play so we can play to win, correct? Right. So that's what we're going to learn today, what the rules are and how to play. So on page 6, how is your credit score determined? It says one's ability to obtain goods or services without payment. Okay, so you're going to get credit. You're not going to give them any money. It's like when we go to those department stores. They're like, hey, you want to sign up for this little card? That's borrowed money, right? So that's going to be based on what they feel that payment will be made in the future, or how credible you are to make that payment in the future. Okay? One's ability to obtain goods or services before payment based on the trust that payment will be made in the future, okay? So that's the credit score, and basically how many credit bureaus are there? Three. I want to ask a question. Are these credit bureaus, raise your hand if you think it's a government program. It's like, something that the government runs? Or raise your hand if you think it's a privately held company. The people who run, like Experian, Equifax, and all those three entities. Who thinks that they're government run?
The government probably had hands on some everything.
Well, I don't take that away. I would agree. But they are actually publicly held or privately held companies that are publicly traded. Okay, so these are billion-dollar companies that are not being monitored. Yeah, okay, that's one thing. So anybody know what FICA stands for? Okay, FICA stands for Fair Isaac Company. The F is for Fair, the I is for Isaac, the CO is the abbreviation for company. It was an entity that was started in 1959 by two individuals. The first guy's last name was Fair, the other's first name was Isaac. They started it, and there's different history with the company. It was sold, different things like that, so they rebranded it and it's just called FICO. But that's actually, your FICO score is just being generated by a company that holds all of that information. They just run mathematical algorithms all the time. So let's go to page 7. It says for the lender, this is how your credit score is determined, okay? For the lender, your credit score means the level of risk involved in lending money to you. So you don't have to answer, you don't have to raise your hand, but I'm going to ask, how many people have been turned down for credit?
Before. I have.
Yeah. So it's based on the fact that they don't believe that we're going to pay them back their money. And sometimes that might be right.
True.
They might be right. But that's what it's based on. And the lender have to look at at more than just what we have coming in, okay? So we have, you know, we have our annual salary that we have to report, right? But it's not just about that. Now, I was concerned because when I went to college, they started sending me all these credit cards. And I thought I was in heaven. $5,000 here, $1,000 there. I was like, woohoo! I'm grown for real. And then I got a bill.
Right.
And my mama said, what is this? But I didn't know. You know, they sent me this thing in the mail just, you know, like I felt good. First of all, it was free money. But it was the first time I had an opportunity to understand or to get exposed to the fact that this is free. Well, it's not free. It's loaned to you, and you have to pay it back. And they figure for college students, the parents are going to pay it for them. So they're smart with targeting the kids, right? I think that's predatory. Who's in agreement with me? That's predatory. So the lenders have to look at more than their income to decide if you're worthy of them taking a chance on you, okay? So when the lenders talk about your score, they're actually talking about the FICO score. And most commonly, it's the most common scoring system today. So the FICO scores are ranging anywhere between 300 and 850. So if you don't have a 300, you are not at the bottom. I just want you to know that. But the goal here today is to see what we can do to get you closer to the 800. Yeah. So we're at another one within the. So hold on for a second, guys. So it says the FICO score ranges from 300 to 850. You guys are filling in the blanks, right? With most people falling within the 600s and the 700s. That's where the majority of people are right now. And in today's market, in order to really, really walk into a place and say, you know, I'm here, I have arrived, you got to have at least a 720. That's what they're looking for today. And that's considered access to like the best rates ever. So so I want to ask you guys this. What companies do you think, or what you have to pay on a month-to-month basis, have any impact on your credit score?
Credit cards.
Credit cards, okay.
Car loans.
Car loans, good. Mortgages, yes, mortgages.
Utilities.
Student loans, absolutely. Utilities, most people don't think that. But anytime a company asks you for your social security number, they're running your credit.
Cable.
Cable.
Insurance.
Insurance, absolutely. So anytime a company asks for your social security number, they are running your credit. And your monthly billing is going to be based on whatever your score is. Okay? So we're going to go a little bit further to see how, that's the next one. Okay. The cost of having bad credit. Okay. How much is bad?
Slide back on.
Oh, go back?
Percentages.
Oh yeah. I didn't go through that. I'm sorry. I skipped that one. So yeah. So this is how your credit score is actually based. You guys can look at that. So payment history, 35%. How you're actually paying your bills. That's the biggest chunk of what identifies your credit score. The amounts that you owe. So say for example you have a $1,000 limit and you're at $800 and $900 of that limit every month. That's not good in the eyes of the credit individuals. The length of the credit history. So if you just open up something, like you haven't really established a lot of credit, that has about a 15% bearing on your score. They look at it better when you've had longer lines of credit. And then new credit, like if you just open up something, and the types of credit that you use, those are the smallest weighing when FICO is actually calculating your credit score. Everybody got that? Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
It doesn't have numbers of inquiries. Like if you have like a number of inquiries that you're trying to get a mortgage and you so many companies.
So it actually does, but it's not that big of a bearing. So if you open up, so if you go and buy a car, compared to having an inquiry, those two are totally different in how they weigh in your score.
Right, but do you know the percentage though?
It's less than 10. It's not. It's so small. It's not in any. And a lot of times they. So first off, we have to really be careful with some of the information that people are just saying very loosely. So is it good to have a lot of inquiries on your credit?
No.
That's what they say, and it does have an effect. So in the mortgage world, what do you see,
So
Louis?
let me tell you, first of all, inquiries do make an effect, but it's a minimum effect. And so if the minimum score that you need to get a loan is a 660, and your inquiries knock you down to a 650, that's life or death.
Absolutely.
But if your score is a 700 and it knock you to a 690, you're still
That's in
okay.
the ballpark.
All right. And when you look at these, that 35%, everybody thinks that paying my bills on time, I got great credit. But that's only 35%. 35% ain't even half of how they determine your credit. So there are people who have less than 600 credit score but make their bill payment on time every month. Right. So there's a lot of stuff involved in it. And inquiries only affect your score for 90 days. Okay?
90 days.
Yeah, so at the 90 days, they don't count that inquiry, or they count it so little, it's like it's not counted. And why do they do that? It's because if a person goes in and they inquire for something, they don't know whether or not you got that account. So they ding you for that account. So if you go and you make 10 inquiries, you might open up 10 accounts, and 10 accounts is a negative, can be a negative situation. So they don't know if somebody's trying to commit fraud, go out and get a whole bunch of credit, and then walk away. So they just automatically ding you to slow you down, and at the period of time, they know whether or not you got that stuff because it will show on the credit report. So even though they may show on your credit report, the effect is only for a short period of time. Okay?
And the effect is so low that, and it's prevalent in our area because most of the time we just flirting with the right credit score anyway. Right. So if we need, like Louis said, if we need a 650 and we're already at 660, they're gonna ask you, hey, look, don't go and do anything because they know it's gonna help fluctuate that, and it might have a bearing on how much. So that's kind of how it is. I don't know if anybody has ever had like a higher credit score, but I know in my past, when going to look for things, if my credit score was really, really nice, then nobody said anything to me about, don't go get any inquiries. Because I had such a gap from where the lowest point of where I needed to be, that it didn't matter. Okay? So we're gonna go to the next slide. So what is the cost of having bad credit really, really costing us, right? So you can go to the next one, please. So that's kind of a little, I don't know if everybody can see that, but we talked about mortgages. And I don't know, do we have any other mortgage professionals in here? No? Okay. So if you look to the far left of us, it has the credit scores, the interest rate, the monthly payment, cost of bad credit, and then cost over the lifetime of the loan. So if you look at the first box, it really, really identifies from where your the range of your credit score and how much interest you're going to pay based on your good or not so good credit. Yes, okay. Based on your good or not so good credit. So if you look at it, people who are in the low 60s, they're actually paying almost $150 more than a person who had maybe a 760 credit score. That's for a 30-year fixed mortgage. And then let's look at because some people may have a mortgage, but most people here have a car. Unless either they have a car loan or we have, yes ma'am. They have a car loan, or they either bought it outright or they finished paying it off. But you run into the same scenarios where with the lower credit, actually, the cost, if we look 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth column, people in the 500s are actually paying over $100 more just because they have bad credit. So I'm gonna ask you this. Do you think it would be more difficult for someone who doesn't necessarily have the finances and as a result has bad credit or a lower credit score? I'm not gonna say bad credit. They just have a lower credit score. Do you think it's really, really fair to charge them and penalize them for the amount of money that they make or the lack of education that they have?
I don't think it's fair.
not fair.
No, I don't think it's fair.
I've always thought that wasn't fair.
And unfortunately, we don't make the rules, right?
Yeah,
So
because
we-
the people who make it are the ones
They can
who
afford it.
who rule everything anyway financially, and they're the ones who probably set this whole thing up that way.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
because you use the word fair, I always say they need to take it out the dictionary because I don't believe there's such word as fair.
At all.
To be honest, I mean
At
that's
all.
in every aspect of life.
I
At
have
all.
to figure out an acronym for fair. You know,
I don't know if those are words you would use in the church. So you can kind of see just how or where, so kind of where you are in your score. Be conscious of that because we may or may not, depending on where you are, be charged more based on what our score is.